This is Latino USA, the radio journal of news and cultura.
It's Latino USA.
It's Latino USA. To Latino USA.
I'm Maria Hinojosa. We bring you stories that are underreported, but that matter to you, overlooked by the rest of the media. And while the country is struggling to deal with these problems, we listen to the stories of Black and Latino students.
A united Latino front.
A cultural renaissance, organizing at the forefront of the movement. I'm Maria Hinojosa. No se vayan.
I think we have a long way to go, but there are green shoots. And the Latino community specifically has a lot of energy and community building that will pay dividends in the long run.
From Futuro Media and PRX, it's Latino USA. I'm Maria Hinojosa. Today, a number of Latinos and Latinas and folks from Latin America have been nominated for Oscars. So what does this all mean about the state of Hollywood and Latino storytelling? In a few days, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences will hold its 96th Oscars ceremony. It's a new opportunity for many in the movie-making business to be recognized for excellence in cinema. And yet, another year in which, unfortunately, representation from Latinos and Latinas, Latine and Latinx on the big screen has remained somewhat stagnant. Just 5.5% of speaking characters in Hollywood movies are Latino or Latina. This despite the fact that Latinos make up 19% of the U.S. population and have a buying power of $3.4 trillion, and Latinos buy lots and lots of movie tickets. This year, America Ferrera has earned her first Oscar nomination for her supporting role in the movie Barbie.
I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us.
And that Colman Domingo has become the first Afro-Latino nominated for Best Actor for his performance as civil rights activist Bayard Rustin.
We are going to put together the largest peaceful protest made up of angelic troublemakers such as yourselves.
But there are several other Latinos and Latin Americans in different roles in Oscar-nominated films who you might not have heard about yet. We're going to speak with some of them today. We'll hear from Maite Alberdi, whose film The Eternal Memory is nominated for Best Documentary Feature about Alzheimer's. We'll also hear from producer and writer Phil Lord, nominated for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But we're going to start with the movie Society of the Snow, nominated for Oscars in the Best International Feature Film category and Best Makeup and Hairstyling. I had a conversation recently with Roberto Canessa, one of the survivors of the 1972 plane crash in the Andes, on which the movie is based. We also spoke with Matias Recalt, who is the young actor who plays him in the film. Roberto Canessa, the survivor, is a cardiologist now in his native Uruguay, and that's where he joined me for this conversation. Roberto, so a lot of people now will only know you as Roberto from the plane crash when you were in your 20s. You are how old now? Con todo respeto?
71.
And frankly, you look amazing, Roberto. I just have to say, you look amazing.
But you lied to me. You said that you were 25 and you look 27, baby.
Well, now that we've brought up age, right? What I want to tell you is that most people will not know now that you have become a very well-established medical doctor in Uruguay, and that this is what you did with your life. Your life went way beyond what happened in the Andes in 1972. So congratulations on a great career and on giving back in this way. I was, I guess, 11 years old when the plane crashed. And so I was watching on television in Chicago in my parents' apartment, and we were watching the footage of what was happening.
A film of what very nearly amounts to a real miracle. Survivors of a plane crash in the Chilean Andes. The plane went down 10 weeks ago. The 45 people aboard were given up for dead.
we knew the story. And that's why I just want to say in particular, it means a lot to be talking with you. Oh, I got emotional.
I am like a legend. I am like a walking bronze statue. It's very funny because it happens how people look to me and then my everyday life. Thanks God, I don't buy all this popularity.
If you can just tell me like what it was like, if you go back to 1972, disco music was happening, right? You were happy, excited, and you're getting ready to board the plane. So what did your life look like?
Well, I was a medical student, second-year medical student, and playing rugby. I had made it the previous year to the national team, which I was very proud of. And we had done the trip 1 year before to Chile, so everything was fun.
You know, everybody focuses on what happens in the movie, right? This extraordinary period of about 70 days. But you have this other life. I mean, did you do a lot of therapy?
No. I mean, when I came out of the Andes, it was like I had an elephant sitting on my shoulders. Yeah, I was so happy that I walked out to the Andes to go to my life, to have an interview 50 years later in Latino with Maria. So, and when I was back at home, I saw people who were suffering lots more. The parents of my friends that had died, they wanted to talk to me. They wanted to know what did they say, what happened. I mean, they didn't care about the way we had to survive. They care about what their sons were saying. And the rugby team was completely distorted. And we had to rebuild the team. And the coach said, we'll need 5 years to get the team running again. And on that year, we became champions. And the father of Arturo Nogueira that died on the plane crash hugged me and told me, my son is not here, but you are here. So he gave me a very strong responsibility and support. And I had to go to the Faculty of Medicine. And if I didn't study, I didn't get up with my exams. And I had my girlfriend. So I didn't have any time for the psychiatrist to sit there and asking how I feel, how I do it. I mean, I am very kinetic. And I like achieving things.
What exactly do you mean by kinetic? And what do you think that the fact that you are kinetic has to do with the fact that you survived?
My mother says that when I was in the cradle, I was moving my hands all the time. So, and I wanted to go back. I didn't want my mother to cry for a dead son. So I want to tell her, don't cry anymore, I'm alive. And it was my driving force.
So would you say that, this thing that you survived 50 years ago, you don't spend a lot of time thinking about it now? Or do you now because of the movie, all of this has come back in the last 5 years in the making of? And how has that been for you? Or was it always with you?
Yes, it's with me, but I don't want to contaminate my life with all the time the Andes. But nowadays with the film, and I see all the people so enthusiastic. The other day I was in Miami and a teenager came around and she couldn't speak and say, are you Roberto? I cannot believe it's you. She was from Colombia. There's a lot of young people with the philosophy of the mountain. And I think that's a very good contribution to life. And that's the reason why I think that this film should get the Oscar, because it's changing people's life. Besides being a film, it's also a contribution to be a better person for people.
It is that film that's just like, wow, somehow you can survive anything, the power of the human body and spirit. So I think you're right. It is a film that says, just never give up. And that is truly a powerful message.
It's a contribution to humans' behavior. I think we should treasure it and should get around.
So what was it like for you, Roberto, to see the film?
Well, I thought, this is quite different than what happened in the mountains. And then I thought, but this is not a documentary. It's a film. And when I told the director, he said, Roberto, if we show what you went through, people leave the movie. I want to have a movie that people will enjoy seeing the movie. They have a movie experience, not a torture. And this is the masterpiece of how he did the things to make it artistic. The spirit is there. The spirit. I get very emotional when I see the movie. Then I have always tears pouring through my eyes.
Oh,
When I see how God has been to me, that has let us achieve what we achieved.
no, you're crying, Roberto. We were saying we were not going to get emotional in this conversation, but
Come on, when you see those the helicopters flying over there, over the guys, and we were left with Nando walking, maybe to die walking, and then we sell them two gorgeous, sexy helicopters to get them. I mean, if that's not the triumph of human spirit, I don't know what it is.
and you used the word torture. Can you just talk to me for a second about the use of that word torture to refer to what you lived through in the Andes?
It's a never-ending pain for the soul and the body. But incredibly, this film has no malignancy. This is a film that could be seen by 12-year-old boys because there's no human malignancy. It's the ancient fight of men against nature. We're facing nature.
Roberto, ¿sabes? Me acabas de romper el corazón un poquito, just a little
Well,
bit.
I am a cardiologist, so I can fix it for you. How can you mend a broken heart? How can you stop the rain from falling down? How can you stop?
Tan lindo.
How about that? I'm a romantic. I'm a terrible romantic. I can't stand with it.
How can you stop the rain from falling down?
The song is Al Green's hit, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? It came out in 1972, the same year Roberto survived that plane crash in the Andes. Coming up, I asked actor Matias Recalt what it was like to play Roberto Canessa in the film, some of the challenges that came up with some very intensely emotional and physical scenes in the movie, and what has stayed with him about the story of relentless survival. Stay with us, no te vayas. Hey, we're back. Before the break, we heard from Roberto Canessa, one of the 16 survivors from the 1972 plane crash in the Andes. The incredible story has been taken to the big screen and is now Spain's candidate for an Oscar in the Best International Feature Film category. In the movie, Roberto Canessa is played by Matias Recalt.
Mírame a los ojos. Mírame a los ojos. Estudio medicina. Soy Roberto. ¿Vos cómo te llamas? Álvaro.
Before playing Roberto, Matias had already gained some recognition in his native Argentina for his supporting role in the Netflix series Apache. But Society of the Snow is definitely a breakthrough for this actor. So I wanted to take him back to when he was first auditioning for the role and finding out who Roberto was, the character that he would be playing. And by the way, even though Matias speaks English, he felt more comfortable chatting with me in Spanish.
So, Matias, I know that the process of auditioning for the film was just beautiful, and the moment when all of you find out that you were actually cast. How much did you know about Roberto before you played Roberto in the film?
Bueno, a Roberto no, antes del rodaje lo conocí meses antes, especialmente para poder construir el personaje. Yo antes la historia la conocía por ser de Argentina, y en Argentina es una historia que desde chico está dando vueltas en tu familia.
Matias said that he remembered hearing about the plane crash when he was little because members of his family would be talking about this event that happened in 1972.
Cuando me dicen que quedo para Roberto Canessa, yo había vivido unos meses antes en la casa de mi profesor de teatro, Y mi profesor de teatro tenía 2 libros sobre la tragedia de los Andes o el milagro de los Andes. Uno era Tenía que sobrevivir de Roberto Canessa. Así que fue como muy, muy místico que ese libro esté ahí.
And then Matias tells me that he ends up visiting his theater teacher, who happened to have a copy of the book that Roberto Canessa wrote about his experience in the Andes. It's a book that not everyone has, and Matias says he found this kind of mystical.
Y bueno, después lo conocí a Roberto, conocí a su familia también. La primera vez que nos conocimos jugamos un partido de tenis. Ganamos, jugamos los 2 Canessa contra los 2 Servino. Y ganamos los Canessa.
He says the first time Roberto and him met in person, they played tennis against another survivor of the plane crash. His name is Gustavo Servino, along with the actor who played him in The Society of the Snow. The real life and the fictional Canessas actually beat the Servinos in that game.
Roberto, what was it like for you when you met Matias?
Well, it moved my heart because he was going to give his best to do everything. And I thought, I'm going to help you, but it's up to him how much he will receive.
So I'm wondering, and I know this is strange, Roberto. All of it is strange, right? See yourself in your 20s. Pero dime, ¿cómo lo hizo bien? How did Matias do?
Come on, spectacular.
Very good, very good.
So, en este momento, Matias, what have you learned from Roberto as a human being who is alive, right? And what did you learn about Roberto as a character that you were playing during the entire filming process?
Creo que un poco a valorar, ¿no? los pequeños momentos. Lo veo a Roberto de una persona muy familiar, muy amiguera, que disfruta de la familia y los amigos como algo muy importante en su vida, y creo que eso aprendí mucho, me quedo con eso. Y bueno, hay algo que también creo que tenemos algo parecido, que es esto de que Robert, un poco en la montaña, dice que puso mucho para el resto y un pedacito se guardó para él. Yo también soy de dar mucho, pero también de alguna manera en los momentos así malos hay una parte mía que se resguarda y se cuida.
Matias told me that he appreciated how much Roberto values his family and his friends. And he learned from Roberto that while he was willing to step up and give so much of himself in that extreme situation, he, like Matias, also kept something private just to themselves, things that they didn't share with the others.
It's kind of crazy, but because this film has gone worldwide, all of those things that you say that you appreciate about Roberto, the person, are things that we're now learning about him and the whole world is learning. So speaking of which, getting really huge, you know, when the film gets nominated for an Oscar, it is in fact a big deal. So I want to know, where were the both of you when you found out that you actually had been nominated, your film had been nominated for an Oscar? So what was your immediate reaction?
I was not very impressed. I mean, I think that there are so many stupid films around. There was about time to give time for an important film, speaking about human values and being made so well by a Latin, you know, was something that they deserved. I mean, these poor actors, they were all day, they're putting snow under their clothes to feel the cold. They were, and among themselves, they built a group and they took care about each other. And that was great. I mean, they suffered a lot until 8 o'clock when they went to hotel to get their hot shower.
Like Roberto, Matias tells me that he actually wasn't that impressed with the Oscar nomination. He also said he knew the movie deserved the recognition.
Creo que cuando, a medida que fue avanzando el proyecto, nos fuimos dando cuenta que era un proyecto grande, que podía llegar a apuntar al Oscar.
And then he said, winning would be a nice surprise, though.
Creo que me voy a sorprender si lo ganamos, pero la verdad que obviamente feliz porque se trabajó mucho, porque es una historia increíble y porque hemos puesto muchas personas para que esto salga bien y para que esto sea lo que es.
So, Matias, I actually want to ask, what was the hardest part of it all?
Bueno, Coincidimos todos en que el momento más difícil fue el momento de filmar el alud. Creo que fue el momento a nivel físico, emocional y técnico más complicado.
Matias said that reenacting the avalanche that took place 17 days after the plane crashed, an avalanche that would kill 8 of the initial survivors, was the hardest part of filming, physically, emotionally, and technically.
Fueron 2 semanas de estar metidos en un avión con hielo, nieve de verdad, donde las escenas eran realmente muy emocionantes, donde se habían muerto 8 compañeros, y pienso que ese fue el momento más difícil.
Matias said it would take them 2 weeks filming inside a plane with real snow and ice in order to get those scenes. And yet, Matias adds that there were multiple hard moments during the filming.
Todos los momentos son duros, ¿no? Desde el accidente del avión hasta el día 10, hasta que no los buscan más, hasta la luz, y así que cada uno se va muriendo. Y parte de nosotros filmamos cronológicamente, entonces a medida que pasaban los días, el cansancio lo iba sintiendo cada vez más, el agotamiento, la dieta que hicimos para bajar de peso.
Now, particularly, he says, it's because they chose to film chronologically, which meant that death became more and more present with every day that they were filming because people were dying in real life, and then the actors had to interpret that, along with the exhaustion because all of the actors had to lose weight in order to stay true to the story and their almost starvation.
I know that watching the film, you're right. As Matias said, there are several things that happen, which is like getting punched over and over and over again. Things continue to happen. But when there is the avalanche, I did feel like, how do you just not give up? Was, in fact, the avalanche one of the worst things that happened? Or was it like, oh, otra cosa, just one more thing?
No, what was the worst?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like when they kick you on the floor. That's what I felt. That I was being beaten on the floor, and the spiritual state was that I had envy for the dead people. I thought that they were better than me. That I was a worse person, and I need to pay my sins because I didn't have anything. Wow. The only thing I had is life. And on the next day, Carlitos Pai says, "This is a very important day. Today is my sister's day, and next year I will have a barbecue with cream and cheese and everything." And I said, "Shut up, Carlitos, don't be stupid. We're dying here, and you're speaking about your stupid party." And he said, "Canessa, you have very ill-tempered. I'm not going to invite you to the barbecue."
Me encanta. Oh my God. Okay, so obviously the question has to be the role of humor in all of this, the role of laughter in your survival.
Look, Maria, between sublime and ridiculous, there's no limit. And to laugh at your own disgrace, it helps you to get around, to suffer less.
Matias, what do you hope that people get from the film? Like, what do you think is the message of the film?
Creo que la importancia de la unión colectiva entre personas para un bien, luchar por las cosas en conjunto y no más en estos tiempos donde vivimos mucho en la individualidad. Confiar en que al final del pasillo hay luz.
He says it's also about the ability of human beings to overcome anything, including death. Matias lost his father 2 months before he began filming.
Roberto, what can you share with us about the thing that kept you alive, that miracle? What is it?
Being very stubborn for what you want. Realizing that someday you're going to die, but what about the other days? And that dying is not that bad. When I was buried alive in the avalanche and I felt I was dying, it wasn't that bad.
Les quiero abrazar.
Come on, cry. You are a chronicle crier.
Chronicle crier.
De nuevo, llorar y reír. Chronicle crier. Roberto, we know that you have to go back to your patient, so thank you so much for your entire story and for spending some time with me and with Matias on Latino USA.
And I am very, very proud of Matias. He did a great job in the film. He's like the voice of the conscious. He's always there, hearing and ready to make contributions in a very humble way, which is not like me.
An absolute masterpiece, 100%.
Gracias, Robert.
Kisses, kisses, kisses. Bye, bye.
Vamos por el Oscar.
Muchas gracias, María. Vamos por el Oscar.
Un abrazo a todos y felicidades.
Maite Alberdi is the first Chilean woman to be nominated for an Academy Award. This is the second time one of her films is nominated for Best Documentary Feature. This time she's competing with the film The Eternal Memory, which is a documentary about the relationship between Chilean journalist Augusto Góngora and his wife, the actress Paulina Urrutia. They are coping with Góngora's Alzheimer's disease. Góngora, the journalist, dedicated most of his career to exposing human rights violations during the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet in Chile from 1973 to 1990. And he was committed to keeping that memory alive. It is a powerful movie. And so I start my conversation with Maite by telling her why I found her film to be so incredibly relatable. I have to tell you, your movie, bueno, it was really profound because my father, who was a very accomplished medical doctor with a brilliant mind, also had Alzheimer's. And basically my mom and my brother were told by my dad's doctor once he passed away, they said, had it not been for the amount of love that you gave El Doctor Hinojosa, he would have died at least 5 years ago. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about what did you learn about love in the making of your film, The Eternal Memory?
I think I learned that there is not only one way to understand love. There is not only one way to live relationships. And I learned that when you have a good love, even the tragical events or situations do not become dramas, like you can live it in another way.
Your film opens with the story of a very well-known journalist. His name is Augusto Góngora. His wife, who is 17 years younger than him, her name is Paulina Urrutia, and she's this beautiful and captivating actress. And very quickly, your film goes into their love story. But it's a love story surrounding Alzheimer's. And at first I was just like, oh my God, where and how does she find the patience to shower her husband, who is losing his memory, with so much love and tenderness and patience? And I want to know more about your decision to open your film in this way.
Yeah, I start the film there because it's like a moment that that represents so good the mood of the relationship. Like he got awake in the middle of the night, completely lost. So if I were there as a wife, probably I will get crazy, like, why you don't remember me? But she made completely the opposite. Like she laughed and she's like, well, I'm your wife. We have been together for 20 years. And he's like, really? I have a wife? Yeah, you have. And in a very nice, tender mood, with a patient and with her capacity as an actress to repeat again and repeat the emotion. This is because he was a good husband too. So like she makes something that is really important, that he never felt that he has an empty space of memory, because each time that he forgets something, she's there to give the information.
Yo soy Augusto. ¿Y tú qué eres?
Yo soy la Pauli. Nos conocemos hace más de 20.
You know, it's a very intimate film. We basically spend all of this time being very intimate with the couple, with Augusto and Paulina, which makes me think about how you end up getting introduced to them. I mean, they were a public couple. People knew them. They're high profile. But what made you say, you know what? Let me put a camera in your house.
I was teaching in a university and she works there. And I realized that she brings him to her work. And I knew that he has Alzheimer's and he was so in society and they were so in love that for me was a big example of how we have to take care today as a society. The people that was working with her integrate him and she was not embarrassed and she didn't isolate him. And there were a couple that were in the world and were trying to be on society. And that was like my first image and what I really wanted to represent with them.
And one of the things that happens with the eternal memory is that because Paulina is an actor, at certain moments you're like, wait, am I watching a film or am I watching a documentary? So can you actually describe for me like the worst moment when you had, I don't know how many hundreds of hours of tape, and then the decisions that you made to help you understand what the through line was going to be?
Yeah, I think that I was very lucky, as you say, because as she's an actress, for me, it's the first time that it's super fast to them to get used to the camera. And in the editing, yeah, I think it's the challenge that all the documentary filmmakers have, that to have so many hours, that I always said that the documentary filmmakers are like a sculptor artist, that we have a big rock and we have to take out to make the figure appear. I think that all the portraits that we see in cinema about Alzheimer's, we always see the dark side and not everything. It's a nightmare. And that is something that we have to understand.
The Eternal Memory premiered in Chile last year, just as the country marked the 50th anniversary of the death of Salvador Allende, the president who was deposed and murdered in a military dictatorship that took over in 1973.
Son las 12 del día, 9 minutos 30 segundos. Esta es Radio Cooperativa, 11 de septiembre de 1973. El centro de Santiago se está convirtiendo en un campo de batalla.
So, I was alive on September 11th, 1973, when the democratic government is destroyed and the dictatorship begins. And your film, for many people, is, again, it's about that memory too. But in many ways, it is a deeply political film.
It's a deeply political film because my characters are so committed with politics. Like Augusto work for preserve the historical memory. So the film is trying to make the same exercise that he did all his life in his job. Like he has a clandestine newscast to report on everything that was happening in the country during dictatorship. So I think that the film, it's trying to make the same that he did during all his life.
Maite, was it a big deal for you to get nominated for an Oscar? Was it something, or were you more just like, oh, okay, well, that's nice?
No, it's always a big deal. It's a lot of work behind that. It's a lot of people working on that, and it means the possibility of continue shooting, and that is for me the power of awards and nominations.
Which means that it makes your hustle as a filmmaker just a little bit easier. Yeah. Thank you so much, Maite. Felicidades. It's a beautiful film. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was director Maite Alberdi speaking to us from London, where she is busy working on her next documentary, and no, she would not reveal what it's about. Coming up, I speak to Cuban-American producer Phil Lord about all things Spider-Man. Stay with us. No te vayas. Phil Lord is already an Academy Award-winning producer. His movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse got the Oscar for Best Animated Feature in the year 2019.
Yeah. Gotta go.
If you want me to drive you, we gotta go now.
No, Dad, I'll walk.
Personal chauffeur going once.
It's okay. Seriously, Dad, walking would have been fine.
Breaking news, Spider-Man saves the day again.
Phil Lord has also made a name for himself alongside his producing partner, Christopher Miller, for films like The Lego Movie, 21 and 22 Jump Street, and now the Spider-Verse trilogy. But even though Phil Lord is Cuban-American, there's not a lot out there about his Latinidad, which is why that's where I wanted to start. So, Phil, it's really great to have you on the show, and thank you so much for making time with us.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor to be here.
Oh, well, thank you, Phil. So, dime, we are talking on Zoom. We're both on camera, and your ID on your computer here in Zoom says Phil Lord y Betancourt.
Betancourt is my mother's family name. She's born in Cuba, moved to this country in 1960, moved to Philadelphia, and down the line met my father, who's an American, at a music therapy convention in, I think, Minnesota.
That's a great story. So can you just paint a picture of little Phil? ¿Tu mamá te decía cómo? How did your mom call you?
Felipe.
Felipe. So take us back to a little Felipe, half Cuban kid growing up in Miami, and you're watching movies and you're like, hey, I want to do that? Or were you thinking, I'm going to be a medical doctor?
No, I mean, it was, my parents are both, their first love is music. My father ran a dance company in South Florida, which was a bit of a merging cultural landscape for modern dance. And they, you know, we're still like a refugee family. So it was all about like, what can you do so that you won't starve? But my parents, you know, they also understood and instilled in my sister and I a love of the arts. So it's not a surprise that by the time I was, 10 years old, that it was something that I was going to do. I think they knew it before I did.
So jumping super fast, how does one get from the kid in Miami who's like dreaming like, maybe I'll go into the arts, to you're now in Hollywood and you're producing and writing major motion pictures?
I mean, a short answer is you get there by accident, right? Like I went to college, I met my writing, producing, directing partner, Christopher Miller there. Neither of us are one in a million at filmmaking, but we work hard. We come from strong, supportive families. We're creative and we're sometimes smart. And when you compound those things, they can add up to one in a million, right?
And then you win your first Oscar, actually, for your Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Best Animated Feature in 2019.
Spider-Man. I mean, this guy swings in once a day, zip, zap, zop in his little mask and answers to no one, right?
Yeah, Dad. Yeah.
So how does that connection happen right there?
The thing that's great about Spider-Man and comics is when Marvel was coming to prominence in the 60s, their whole idea was populism. Their characters were not from outer space. And Spider-Man is not someone who has power because it's his birthright. He has power because he was chosen at random, and he succeeds because he's got a big heart. And so we've always tried to ignore any artificial barriers between, You know, the stuff that people enjoy en masse and the things that make us feel transported in an art museum or in a concert hall.
Órale, Phil. Okay. Okay. So look, I'm just going to be really honest with you. I'm not, comic books. Okay, to be honest, I'm not like a big Spider-Man, like, oh my God, like I have to be there.
Right.
But I will tell you this. I did watch this film that is nominated. Bro, I friggin' loved it. I was so surprised. It's not the glitzy glam of Superman and Clark Kent. It's like my neighborhoods, mis barrios. There's all of these hints, right? One of my favorite, of course, is when the mom says bendición.
Yeah.
Or he asks for the bendición, which is just like,
Bendición, mami.
Que Dios te bendiga.
So the truth is that I really did fall in love with Miles Morales in this film. And it is a big deal to see an Afro-Latino teenager as Spider-Man and as essentially kind of ruling New York City. Tell me why. Why were you like, yeah, he's got to be Afro-Latino for sure?
First of all, you're making me tear up.
Oh my God, why?
Just because it's so lovely that you connected with the movie. So many people put so much energy into the details, and we hope that they aggregate into a feeling.
They did,
and we try not to. We want those things that you noticed. We want that to feel commonplace. Miles comes from two creators, an Italian woman named Sara Pichelli, an illustrator, and Brian Bendis, a comic book creator, lives in Portland. And Brian has two daughters from Africa, and he was looking around for comics to, turn them on to, and he said that there wasn't enough. So he's like, I'm going to write one. So when Amy Pascal, our producer, came to us and said, will you do a Spider-Man movie animated? We said no and hung up. Maybe 2 minutes later, we said, well, what if it was about Miles? At that time, Miles is the most popular new comic book in the Marvel universe. And we called Amy back. We said, what if it's Miles Morales? Who's Miles Morales? He's a, Afro-Puerto Rican kid with an intact family. She says, I love it.
Oh my God.
And she hung up.
I love it. Goodbye. Do it.
I love it. Goodbye. But the choice to center Miles and his family was really little and easy.
How much do the production teams and writers take into consideration that, 30% of movie ticket sales are bought by Latinos and Latinas?
And over-index for animation, by the way.
Oh, that's a new one that I didn't know. So Latino and Latina viewers over-index in terms of their connection to animation.
That's right. And I wish I was a sociologist and could tell you why.
Interesting. Anyway, so I thought that there would be a whole lot of, frankly, kind of corporate thinking about, well, we definitely want to make sure that this is a Latino, Afro-Latino focus because it's going to help us with the movie sales. And you're like, nah, it wasn't like that. But in fact, it is a brilliant marketing strategy and just, factual inclusivity, right?
Yeah, we want to represent the world as it is. So we want to, if you go to New York and you look and listen, like, this is what you see. And you're being a dishonest, not very effective artist if you don't represent the world that way. Apart from the strategic and commercial premise that if we meet the audience where they are, we can all, win big. It really just starts with wanting to make a good movie.
I mean, it does ultimately. I mean, it is about making a good movie, which means that when you make a good movie and it's different and it connects with people, it means that you get nominated for an Oscar. So when you heard that you were nominated again, what happened?
I mean, we're very proud and happy for the crew more than anything else, Every movie is a risk. This movie is a big one. It's a huge financial investment from the studio. You're very grateful that the movie resonates because when a movie like this is a hit, and this is the third highest grossing domestic release of the year.
Okay, humble brag. Just
yes, sorry. It means that people will make more.
So why do you think that Spider-Man and the whole story of Spider-Man continues to resonate?
I mean, he's one of us. And it's as simple as that. That's what makes Miles unique from most of the other Spider people, is that his parents are both alive and they're together. And one of the things I've learned making movies is conflict is overrated. There's a big difference between watching people in a fight and two people trying to get along. And watching people in harmony is so entertaining.
And taking a Latino family with all of that nuance and saying, check this out.
Miles's grades are pretty good. A in AP Physics.
That's my little man.
And AP Studio Art.
He takes after his uncle.
A- in English.
She's a tough grader.
And a B in Spanish.
What?
Ooh, okay.
Miles.
Are you trying to
Mira,
kill
eso
your
es
mother?
imposible.
Cálmate, mami. Eso no es my fault.
¿Qué es eso que esto no es my fault? Tú estás tomando una clase en Spanglish.
Mama, just missed a few classes.
Oh, just a few classes.
You know, a big surprise of the movie, the first time we showed it to an audience, you know, we were saying to ourselves, half this movie is people flying around and doing cool stuff. And the other half of the movie is people in rooms talking, usually just two people having long conversations. And we're like, well, I know they're going to like half this movie. and somebody in the audience said, you know, this is a coming of age story for the kids and the parents.
And you're saying this is like super intentional on your part, like as a writer and producer, very intentional.
So what's critical to making that work is Miles' desire, he's going to get back home to his family, and that chase represents something deeply emotional, which is, I thought I was going to be part of this group. I thought they were going to be as supportive, more supportive than the people that I left back home, and I was wrong. They betrayed me, and now I'm on my own. Like, people in a story having an emotional experience. What, Peter, why did you betray me? Like, that's what it's really about.
And ultimately, always listen to your mother.
For real. You know, I think my mother would relate to this. Like, you could give them the answers to the quiz, but they're not ready. They have to find it themselves.
So talk about finding things by ourselves. Can we talk for a moment about the state of Latinos and Latinas, Latinx, Latine folks in Hollywood? Does it feel like 2024 is a little bit different, or is it like, nah, this is how it goes, and it is still always and continuously a hustle?
It's always a hustle. I speak as someone, you know, a white Cuban from Miami who has not faced a great deal of discrimination growing up. It's like, it's just different down there, right? However, the Oscars are a very small sample size, and there's a lot of noise in the data. I think this year we have a lot to celebrate. America Ferrera's nomination is historic and wonderful. She's a wonderful filmmaker. She's got a long way to go. This year, there's also a nomination for Flamin' Hot, one of my favorite movies of the year. It's not a rise and fall story. It's a rise and rise story.
I got an idea. It's a spicy chip. It's going to change everything. It will save our factory. And you're a janitor. No, don't hang on. There's a crazy idea.
And the first Afro-Latino, Colman Domingo.
That's it. And so, not bad. I think we have a long way to go, but there are green shoots. And the Latino community specifically has a lot of energy and community building that will pay dividends in the long run.
And so what do you recommend in terms of continuing to try to make that happen?
The boring answer is you have to have intention and you have to have insistence. So you can't just go like, here's our one Latino project and, oh, whoops, it didn't work out. You have to have 10, and you have to put the intentionality and resources towards developing it.
And of course, everyone thinks Hollywood, once you're there, it's easy. It's a hustle, and it's a hustle for Latino and Latina stories in particular, which leads me to what's coming up next in terms of the Spider-Verse trilogy. Am I going to love it as much? Dímelo, Felipe. ¿Me va a gustar?
The next picture is about really interesting emotional ideas, but really about the question of what do you do with your disappointment and anger and the feelings of betrayal that Miles is left with at the end of this movie. How does Miles take those feelings and turn them into something beautiful? That's kind of what we're trying to make the next picture about.
Phil Lord y Betancourt. Betancourt. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me about the Spider-Verse. Congratulations on your nomination for an Oscar.
Thank you very much.
I hope you win.
A ustedes. Thank you so much.
Spider-Man, Beyond the Spider-Verse, the final part of the trilogy, will be released later this year, and the Oscars will be seen on Sunday, March 10th. And good luck to all the nominees. This episode was produced by Marina Peña. It was edited by Andrea Lopez Cruzado. It was mixed by Gabriela Baez. The Latino USA team also includes Victoria Estrada, Reynaldo Leaños Jr., Glorimar Marquez, Marta Martinez, Mike Sargent, Noor Saudi, and Nancy Trujillo. Benilei Ramirez is our co-executive producer. Our director of engineering is Stephanie LeBeau. Our senior engineer is Julia Caruso. Additional engineering support by J.J. Karubin. Our marketing manager is Luis Luna. Our theme music was composed by Zenia Rubinos. I'm your host and executive producer, Maria Hinojosa. Join us again on our next episode. In the meantime, look for us on social media. And remember, no te vayas. Hasta la próxima. Ciao.
Latino USA is made possible in part by the Ford Foundation, working with visionaries on the front lines of social change worldwide, the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, and Alonzo Cantu.
Bueno, Matías, ¿cuándo es que te dan ahora lo del Oscar? Es en estos días, ¿no?
El Goya es el sábado.
Mejor actor de reparto tenés ahí, ¿no?
De revelación.
Revelation actor, look at that.
Felicidades, Matías, felicidades. We hope you win the Goya.
Gracias.
¿A quién tenemos que pegarle para que salga primero?
A unos pares.
¿Quiénes son? ¿Argentinos también?
No, españoles. Te queda un poco lejos, pero bueno. Y, ya hice mi trabajo, Robert. Vos quédate tranquilo, no te ensucies las manos. Vos quédate tranquilo, está todo en orden.
God, you are so funny.
Que parezca un accidente.
You're interpreting Marlon Brando.
It looks like an accident.
Oh my God.